We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully your day is going well. It is Monday. We're starting out a new week. Sitting here on Sunday night recording this, and I thought, the fuck am I going to do today? I thought, well, I'll come to Substack, do a Substack live. I always enjoy coming here because a lot of you folks show up, a lot of you folks participate, and it makes for an interesting conversation. It's a little out of the norm from my normal podcast. Usually I have a guest or something like that. This time, all of you are the guest. That's why I encourage you to respond, ask questions, make comments, talk shit. I don't care. I enjoy hearing from you folks, and it makes the conversation a little more interesting. By the time people hear this on the podcast, it's Monday morning. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think this particular week, the shit's going to fly. Things are coming together. Donald Trump doesn't look well. Is he continuing to deteriorate? I think that's probably true. We've got the situation with Donald Trump wanting to send troops into Chicago and other areas. Now, it's funny. I've heard people talk about this like he's already done that. That hasn't happened. They were making plans in the Pentagon earlier today, and they're making plans to go into Chicago, which I find kind of interesting. It's one thing to do what he did in Washington, D.C. See, Washington, D.C. doesn't have a governor, so there's nobody to push back. The Pentagon has full control over the National Guard in Washington, D.C., so it's easy for them to send them out in the streets in D.C. Going to Chicago could be a different deal, going to other parts of the country. Now, as the president, he can override a governor, as he did in California, under emergency circumstances. The thing about it is there wasn't emergency circumstances in L.A., D.C., and certainly not in Chicago. So Donald Trump is kind of stepping all over the norms and rules as he does. The key we have to worry about is figuring out how to stop him. This is something that should have been able to have been stopped early on. But for whatever reason, the Democrats, our judicial system, has been unable to do it. Trump's health is getting worse daily. That comes to us from Eric, our friend from Iowa, who's on the podcast frequently. Yeah, it does seem to be declining a lot over the last week or two. Something's going on. I mean, I think it's been 14 days that he hasn't gone golfing, and that's maybe the longest stretch we've seen since he's been in the presidency. I mean, let's look at the facts. He's 79 years old, certainly not in good physical or mental health. He's certainly not eating well. He's not doing the things he probably needs to do to stay healthy. You know, Donald Trump is not one to take advice or suggestions. He's the smartest one in the room, so he's going to do what he wants to do. Unfortunately for him, fortunately for us, it'll probably kill him. And keep your fingers crossed. Thoughts on Jerome Powell caving to Trump? I wouldn't suggest Jerome Powell's caving to Donald Trump. I mean, this is something I was talking about the last time Jerome Powell said he wasn't going to lower the interest rate. It was interesting. Remember when that jobs report came out that Donald Trump didn't like, and he fired the woman, and he hated the jobs report because it was so bad? It was weird that Donald Trump got so weirded out by that, because that kind of activity is one of the reasons why you would lower the interest rate, increasing prices as well, too. You got to remember, we're just now starting to see the increased prices, and we're seeing the job situation worse off. So that would cause them to lower the interest rate naturally. So he hasn't really caved to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has just been successful in creating the negative reactions where it would make sense to lower the interest rate. Karen says, well, let's thank the Supreme Court for giving him preferential immunity. And, you know, the important thing is he only has so much immunity, and nobody around him has immunity. All that keeps him is from being prosecuted for crimes, at least crimes that he could suggest he did while in the professional or the process of being president. There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts about that. He golfed yesterday with Roger Clemens. Okay. So there was about a 13-day break, and he golfed yesterday with Roger Clemens, who is, as much as he is a great pitcher from history, he's a piece of shit too. All right. In truth, perhaps Powell wouldn't. I don't think so. Not sure what that means. Off top, off topic, but have you seen how much of the Mondani influence is spreading New York, Seattle, Minneapolis, and maybe soon Atlanta? The establishment is cracking. Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, yeah, I hope that's the case. I mean, I've always said all along, one way we can get out of this, or at least get on the right track, hopefully, would be more young people running for office. We are seeing that here in Minneapolis to a certain extent, and some of the other places. The establishment in this country is cracking. And I'll be honest with you, when Donald Trump was elected the first time, that should have been a red flag to establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats. The reason Donald Trump, who wasn't a great bet to vote for president, nobody really thought he was going to win, but people have gotten so tired of the day-to-day politics as usual, the establishment shit, doing for the rich and not doing for us. People got tired of this shit. They got so tired of it, even though in 2016 they didn't know anything about Donald Trump, they took a flyer. They said, fuck it, how could it be any worse? Well, of course, we found that out. For your information, Indiana has just approved National Guard to go on ice raids. Well, that wouldn't surprise me. It's a big red state. But I'm going to tell you something. That may be the mistake for the Trump administration. The people in this red state say, sure, come and get the illegals, come and get the criminals out of here. But when they go into Indiana and start doing what they've done at D.C. and Los Angeles, how do you think those bright red Second Amendment motherfuckers, how do you think they're going to react when it starts to hurt them? It's kind of like the situation with the prices or the farms. Farms were all for Donald Trump until they started getting rid of U.S. aid, and then of course it started to hit their pocketbook. So I'm glad Indiana said, "Sure, come on in," because what will happen is some of these people that are all happy about this prospect will start getting their toes stepped on, and you might see an interesting reaction. Spacer says, "I'm also loving Graham Plattner in Maine. And you should ask Eric at some point about Turek in Iowa. There's also a young Muslim gentleman, Sanders endorsed. I hope they all win." Yeah, Graham Plattner, he's a oyster farmer, I guess, in Maine. And he's kind of a blue-collar, no-nonsense, in-your-face kind of guy. And what the commenter said earlier is very true. We've got people getting tired of what's going on here. And it's not just that they're tired of the Republicans. Of course, they're tired of the horrible shit that Republicans are doing, but they're clearly upset and tired of the crap that the Democrats are doing. I mean, when you talk about too much money in Congress, it's not just the Republicans. The Republicans are trying to overturn our government, of course, and they are the dumpster fire that's still burning brightly. But the Democrats need some help too. We're seeing that now when you see Mondani in New York, and then you see all the establishment Democrats not willing to endorse him. He got the endorsement in New York. He's got a good chance to win. Why would you care whether he was young or old? The fact that he's Democrat, you should get behind him, but they don't. And you know why they don't? Because he's a Muslim. And it's not even because of a racist thing. It's because the PACs, especially AIPAC, which is an Israeli PAC, puts money in the pockets of all members of Congress, not just Republicans, Democrats. And for that money, they have to appeal to and protect whatever Israel wants to protect, or at least this PAC wants to protect. And the idea of a Muslim coming in from an Israeli state of mind, or at least the Israeli government and AIPAC, they don't like it. So they should shut it down. But whether or not Mondani or any of these other people is a viable candidate and could win for the Democrats, if the Democrats are getting money from AIPAC, they're going to be against him. And that's the kind of shit we've got to stop here. We've got the old guard trying to push out the young people. But I think what's going to happen, the failure is going to be so substantial in D.C., we've already seen it, that just by default, these young people are going to win because people are tired of the bullshit they're dealing with at this point. But they're holding on for dear life. They're grasping at straws just to stay relevant, especially the Republicans, but not just the Republicans. We're talking about the Democrats, too. So that should be interesting. SM said we should get rid of the old rank. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I've talked about this a long time. When you look at what we were dealing with Donald Trump, he's been doing this for 10 years, this behavior, this behavior that somehow the Republicans are now appalled by, that Gavin Newsom is doing it. But think of all the people who went up against Donald Trump, all the criminality, the corruption, and all the embarrassing things that he did. None of it really scratched him. None of him hit him hard. Not until Gavin Newsom comes in and starts talking shit, starts mocking him, starts copying him, and rubbing in his face in it. Now, this is something I've said long ago. When you're dealing with a narcissist, you can make all kinds of claims, legitimate claims about criminality, corruption, or whatever, and it won't touch them because they believe they're the smartest ones in the room. And they believe that whatever they say, they can convince other people to believe it. But when someone comes along, makes fun of them, puts in question their manhood or their intellect, that's when you get them spinning. And that's what's happening with Donald Trump, too. And of course, the people around him are thinking this is all horrible because they're demeaning their Lord and Savior. Well, this is the answer. And the troubling thing about this is that Gavin Newsom seems to be the only one willing to do this. You would think this would be a hint to some of the other Democrats. If you're a younger Democrat and you want to participate in what's going on now, start talking, start pushing back. Do you think a whistle, Laura, it must be a type of a whistleblower from the Justice Department or release the Epstein files? Yeah, actually, I do. I mean, I don't have anything to base this on, but I know that the Trump White House and the DOJ is quite leaky. And the reason we're seeing people be that willing to leak things out is because they're just seeing how horrific the things these people are doing. They're feeling a little guilty. They're maybe trying to separate themselves from this because they know it's all going to crash into a steaming pile of shit. So they're going to do that. And, as they continue to play these games with the Epstein files, I think we are going to see some leaks. It seems inevitable. I mean, you heard the news that the DOJ turned over documents from the Epstein files to Congress, right? They didn't turn over everything. They turned over some of the documentation. Turns out it's like 1 or 2% of the file's entirety. Now, in that 1 or 2% they handed over, only 3% was new information. The rest of it was all stuff we knew before. So they're doing everything they can to slow walk this thing and not do it. But we'll see what happens. Pelosi was expecting to sit back and cruise to her nomination for next year, but this new young guy in San Francisco might give her a run for her money. I hope they do. And maybe that'll be a hint to some of the other older people here. Time has come. Time to get the fuck off the throne and let somebody else take over, because what you've done so far in the last 10 years has been pretty fucked up. Vincent Johnny says Canada dropping counter tariffs on CUSMA items, but it will maintain tariffs on steel, aluminum, and auto. So that's going to have a significant effect. And of course, we're also seeing some action in Europe too, because of the uncertainty of what the tariff situation is. They're going to raise some prices. See, this is a problem with Donald Trump. He talks about all these deals he has. Nothing's written down on paper. You can't trust Donald Trump to stick to any promise he's made. So you can say you've got a deal, but nobody's trusting the situation. There are no deals. Until you have it written down and agreed to, you don't have a deal. And to be perfectly honest with you, even if you have a deal written down with Donald Trump, you probably don't have a deal because Donald Trump will break or violate those terms in a matter of time. Don't believe me? There's the trade deals he signed with Canada and Mexico when he was in his first office. Said it was the greatest trade deal ever. This is the same trade deal he's now breaking. If Trump sends the military to Chicago, Trump is only creating another more powerful Democrat that will push back and humiliate him. Good point. Good point. What you're suggesting here is that when he went into L.A., that gave Gavin Newsom the opportunity to do what he's doing now. And you're probably absolutely right. It gave him credibility for speaking out like he's doing for what he's doing to his state. And what you're saying now is if he goes into Chicago, we've got J.B. Pritzker, who's maybe not as smooth and shiny as Gavin Newsom, but he's as articulate and strong and willing to go after Donald Trump. It's a matter of finding somebody who's willing to go after Donald Trump. Donald Trump may have just fucked up because if he gets Pritzker going more than he already has, he could be in trouble getting hit from Gavin Newsom to Pritzker to whoever the next city is. The interesting thing is, like we were talking about before, he's talking about sending these troops into red states. You might think that's friendly territory, but when these people start stepping on the toes of these mouth-breathing, red meat-eating, Second Amendment cheering people, they may not like it. You notice how a lot of things Donald Trump is doing now were things that the Trumplefucks thought they'd like, but now they don't, and they're mad. So go on into those red states. Let's see how that goes. SM says they were 98% of what was already released. Yeah, and that's not surprised regarding the Epstein files that were turned over. You remember when they handed out all these booklets to the radical right podcast people at the beginning of the term. When people looked in it, they saw it was all the same shit we heard. That's why he wanted to release the grand jury transcripts, because all that was in that was all already previously released information. So that's what was going on there. And they're just trying to drag people along and try to delay it as much as they can. I mean, you think about Donald Trump and the Republicans, everything they've done since before they were in office this time to now that they're in office is to delay, run out the clock. That's what they do. Now, I don't think they'll ever run out the clock on the not Gavin Newsom, the Jeffrey Epstein thing. People want to know what the fuck is up. And to be perfectly honest with you, what's been shown so far just causes more questions. You got this Ghislaine Maxwell interview. They release an edited version of it. Didn't really tell us anything, but I thought it was funny. The Ghislaine Maxwell interview probably made it worse for Donald Trump. It's not surprising because that's who Donald Trump is. But what was interesting, Jim Jordan tried to get in there and say, well, Ghislaine Maxwell said Donald Trump is exonerated. Well, that's not what she said. She didn't remember a lot of things, but even still, she's a convicted monster who's convicted of perjury. So not really a credible witness at all. But Jim Jordan said something about not seeing anything that would implicate Donald Trump. I thought that was funny. I thought it was very funny because he said he doesn't see anything here. Of course, we all remember his time at Ohio State when we had all that sexual abuse going on with the male athletes, and he didn't see anything there, for which he's being sued now. And we'll see how that plays out. Spacer says Lloyd Doggett is taking a hint. He said he's going to bow out of his seat to allow Rep. Cesar and Jasmine Crockett to maintain their positive representatives. Well, it's bound to be the case that some older guy is going, I had my time, I made my money, I made my bones. Why don't I move on? I got to tell you, people who try to put off retirement, don't do it. I've been retired for a little while, not a long while, but a little while. Fucking love it. I get to do whatever I want. I get to come here and talk shit and not worry about what anybody else thinks. SM says, I believe if you pardon Maxwell, radical right will abandon him. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. They see her as much of a criminal as Jeffrey Epstein. Rose says, I saw an interview yesterday at Substack with one of his victims prior to 2020. It was horrific of her description of what he did to her. She said that Donald Trump took her virginity. Yeah, there was a woman who filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump, and his co-defendant was Jeffrey Epstein. And it was regarding the rape of underage girl. Now, that went away after a while, and then it came back, and then it went away again. Some people are suggesting that the woman chickened out. If you ever saw this interview, she is telling the truth and she's being honest. Obviously, this had a serious impact on her. But knowing what we know about Donald Trump now, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that this woman was threatened. Maybe her family was threatened. And the question is, do you want to go forward if your family and yourself are in mortal danger? And I'm not even being ridiculous about this. We've seen this in other situations. We've got judges, we've got people in the media that are getting death threats every day because of Donald Trump. So I think a lot of this stuff, if not all this stuff, will come out at some point, at such point where Donald Trump is no longer in power and can't do anything. And trust me, that day is coming. When that happens, a lot of things are going to fall out of the sky. And when it's all said and done, Donald Trump will be a pariah. And I'll guarantee you this, his grandchildren will be looking for ways to change their name because having the name Trump will not be beneficial to them. Jim Jordan is the worst here in Ohio. People thought he was going to fill the Senate seat vacated by Vance. I wish he did because that would have been hilarious and embarrassing for him running against Senator Brown. What do you think about the abusers that will show up on the 10th? Not sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about in front of Congress? I guess I'm not aware that the 10th is the day. You gotta understand, I'm old. It's later at night for me. I'm not clicking on all cylinders. So tell me what's happening on the 10th, and then I'll know what you're talking about. I think Trump originally wanted Jordan in the Senate seat, but Governor DeWine, being a more Reagan-style politician, he put more relatively moderate John Husted. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I retired in 2022. I never want to work for no one. I get to enjoy my 7 grandchildren. I can relate to that. In fact, last night, all day yesterday, last night, met with my granddaughter, my 5-year-old granddaughter. And we had a great time. We did all kinds of fun shit. We swam, we went in the boat, we went on some rides up at the mall and stuff. We had a good time. I have another grandson who's about 3 months old. We're going to spend some time watching him too. So I'd much rather do that than some of the bullshit I've had to do in my life. Roseanne says Stormy Daniels said that someone came up to her in a parking lot and threatened her little girl. Yeah, I remember hearing that story, and it wouldn't surprise me. When this was all going down with Donald Trump prior to the first election, I'm sure she got a lot of heat. I don't know that she gets it anymore because she's not as consequential as she was back then. But yeah, I did hear that story. And I'm sure there's dozens of stories like that from other people that maybe have upset Donald Trump. I mean, look at John Bolton. John writes a book. Next thing you know, they've got the FBI raiding his house. For Donald Trump to say, that wasn't political, and we're just checking out new evidence. You have to understand this whole thing that Donald Trump is claiming about John Bolton is about him having classified documents. It's ironic that Donald Trump would be worried about somebody like John Bolton with classified documents when Donald Trump himself had like 3 pallets full of classified documents in his fucking golden, gaudy bathroom. And the other part of this is this whole thing was gone over in 2020 and there were no charges filed. So are you telling me since 2020 there have been new evidence that prove this? The book came out a few years ago. That's where they got tipped off to this whole thing. So it's all a joke. It's all very stupid. And there are going to be Republicans after this is all said and done are going to have to answer some questions, and it ain't going to be easy for them. Amanda, thank you for using your power to speak the truth into this fucked up situation we are in. Well, it's no problem, and I've told people before the only power I have is the people who come and interact with my videos, whether it be on TikTok, Substack, the podcast, YouTube, or Spotify. I'm not so much powerful in my own right. I'm more of a shit stirrer, Try to get out legitimate information, get people aware of what's going on, and get them to pass that information on to other folks. That's the best I can do. And thankfully, people like you in the audience have been very helpful in perpetuating this bullshit. It's all about Trump's rage and retribution. Yeah, this whole thing probably smacks of retribution. The idea that he ran for president, the idea that he has Obama living in his head rent-free. It probably largely goes back to that press dinner where Obama made fun of him. Donald Trump was seething when that happened. He wasn't the president at the time. No one imagined that he'd ever become president, but Obama talked some shit about him. And all of it was legitimate and truthful and embarrassing, but Donald Trump is an embarrassing motherfucker. And from that time, Donald Trump has hated Obama. And that's one of the main reasons he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think he even understands what it is. The reason he wants the Nobel Peace Prize is because Obama's got one. And he needs so badly to prove that he's better than Obama. And frankly, it's not even close. Vance is saying the same thing like cats eating dogs in Ohio, as is now proclaiming that there is bad stuff in Washington. Yeah, they just make shit up. I mean, this is pretty typical for Donald Trump. Create a problem and then try to solve the problem. But in the process of trying to solve the problem, they fuck it up more. It's really ridiculous. And to me, Republicans, I won't say they don't see it. They're just unwilling to recognize it and acknowledge it. And they just go along with it. Absolutely embarrassing for them. And they don't even realize it until after Donald Trump will be gone. I see Republicans realizing they can't rely on social or cultural issues while being in power. The whole Cracker Barrel thing. And the one story I was hearing was involving a new Lego Batman video game. And one of the costumes the character can play as is in a rainbow Batman costume. MAGA is whining like usual. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Don't we have better things to worry about? Cracker Barrel changes their logo after, 40, 50 years? So the fuck what? These people are so desperate to find insult in everything. Just shut the fuck up. Bring the prices down. Show us the Epstein files. Don't worry about fucking Cracker Barrel, for fuck's sake. I have not heard a word about the MAGA nutcase who shot those 2 Minnesota Democrats and spouses. Any info on that? Well, I live in Minnesota. The guy's in jail. He is a goofball. He is a Republican. He is a Trump humper. Now, of course, all the Republicans tried to tell us he was a Democrat, and he wasn't. Why would a Democrat go shoot other Democrats? Why would a Democrat shoot anybody? If you're going to see somebody with a gun shooting people, it's almost always a Republican, a conservative, a nutcase, a dipshit. But he's in jail. I guess we'll find out more once the trial starts, but I can only imagine how deep this shit goes. The reason they tried to make him out to be a Democrat is because he was on some kind of commission. Um, he was appointed by Governor Dayton, and then when Walz came in, he reappointed him to the commission. But he had no interaction with the governor. It's, these commissions, they put anybody and everybody on them, so that's not a thing. Nice try, Republicans. You look fucking stupid. Rose says most of the highest crimes are happening in the red states. Why are the governors of these states sending guards to D.C.? Well, that's an excellent point. Why would South Carolina send troops to Washington, D.C.? Is everything cool in South Carolina? Not what I've heard. Nor in some of these other states, Alabama. I mean, some of these red states are the most horrific states. They require um, more welfare, more subsidies than the blue states. Crimes is out of hand in those states. That's why I'm looking forward to Donald Trump sending people into red states. I saw a woman wearing an 8647 shirt today and gave her a thumbs up. Absolutely. Um, I know that gets in the head of Trump fucks. I was at a garage sale recently with my wife. Why was I at a garage sale? Because I'm fucking 65. That's what 65-year-olds do. When they got nothing to do, they go to a fucking garage sale, which is ironic because we've downsized everything we have. So going into the garage sale, while my DNA says go to a garage sale, I got no business buying anything because I live in a condo now. I don't have any room. It's a weird deal. But anyway, there's two women living there. I believe there were a couple. Um, and one was into the printing of T-shirts and hats and all that sort of thing. And everything they had was about fuck Trump and that sort of thing. It was very Democrat. And we were talking, and we obviously had a lot in common. There was some old guy going through it, and we were talking just as loud as anybody would talk, and you could see it was bothering him. And my wife says, he could say something. I go, I fucking dare him. Because if I don't tear him up, these two women were adamant about what's going on in this country, and this guy won't make it out alive if he says fucking anything. Unfortunately, discretion's the better part of valor. He shut his mouth and walked on down and is probably pouting right now because the libtards are talking mean about him. Let's see here. If you were listening to this, please smash the heart. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, Amanda. I appreciate that. That's one thing you'll never hear me do. It always annoys me when I watch TikToks and such and say, got a big story for you. Here's the deal. We're going to tell you all about it. But first, punch all the buttons, do this, do that. Look, I think the best thing you can do is do what you do. And if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. I'm not going to beg for anything. I do appreciate you suggesting that, though. That is nice of you to do that. Um, Mr. Global comments about Venezuela's situation, saying it's more about oil rather than the cartels taking control of Venezuela's oil fields to isolate Iran out of the world oil market and to lower gas prices. So he's putting, um, let's see here. So he's putting U.S. military into insurgency, like situation in Venezuela. That's uh, that's a good point. When we look at some of the things that Donald Trump is doing, people want to suggest that he's playing 4D chess and there are things going on behind the scenes. I will say this. Yeah, there's probably other agendas going on right now, but it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is nothing more than a puppet. He's easily manipulated, and there are the evil geniuses around him that are fucking playing with him to do their bidding. And the idea that it might have something to do with oil, absolutely. And Mr. Global obviously is an expert at such, and I would tend to believe Mr. Global. Let's see here. Did you see Russian Minister Lavrov was on Meet the Press, letting him defend why Russia is in Ukraine? There's no line when it comes to how the legacy media normalizes everything. I did not know that. That is fucking appalling. That is only second to having Lavrov in the Oval Office just after Donald Trump took office in his first term. Lavrov is a known spy. He's a known spy. And he's in the Oval Office with Donald Trump. And if you remember something interesting here, when he was in the Oval Office in the first term, there was a report that Donald Trump, the new president, inadvertently let some top secret information, military information, go and let the Russians know about it. You know what's interesting about that? That military information wasn't American information, it was Israeli information. So, does it go back that far? Is that what we're talking about? Amanda says, I'm willing to say that for you. Appreciate you so much. Well, I appreciate you too, Amanda, as I do all the folks that listen. And the idea that some old 65-year-old guy could sit down in his living room, turn on his phone, and that people would come to listen, fucking crazy. And I'll tell you this, my kids would probably agree with that. Roseanne, it was a bipartisan commission, and the shooter was originally appointed because, believe it or not, he was a minister with connections to well-connected Republican political groups. His friend said that he became radicalized over abortion in recent years. Yeah, that wouldn't be surprising to me at all. Um, there is kind of a cult mentality in the pro-life world. You know, it's a funny thing about abortion. Um, and I heard somebody say this, and I can't remember who it was, about abortion. Am I pro-abortion? For me personally, no, I'm not pro-abortion, but I am pro-choice. Whether you're male or female, white or black or whatever, you should have the choice to decide what to do with your own body. And in terms of abortion, there are many situations where your life might be at risk, and you should be allowed to make that choice to save your own life. But that's not what Republicans want to do. That's not what they think should happen. And of course, there are plenty of women in this country now suffering because of those decisions. He is a syphilis-riddled dementia patient who is no more than a useful idiot for the Heritage Foundation. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if we know that he has syphilis, but if anybody does, I guess he'd be a good choice given his behavior. Whether the Heritage Foundation is in charge or big money oligarchs are in charge, I don't know. Somebody other than Donald Trump is in charge, and Donald Trump is just like a flailing idiot, easily manipulated to do whatever they want, as long as they feed his ego and help him make money, and the perceived notion that he has power. As long as you keep him happy that way, he'll do pretty much whatever you want. I also see Democrats freaking out about how Democratic voting party registration is down and how it was being outpaced by Republican voting party registration. But they don't understand it doesn't translate into votes, and it goes back to how people are tired of establishment party politics. Yeah, the Republicans are in a cult, so of course they're going to continue to register the way they do. But just because the registration is down, that doesn't mean Republicans are going to win in the 2026 midterm. That's not what it means. I think people should take a note from what they saw with Donald Trump in 2016 and in 2024. Um, that is not really about parties anymore as much as it was. I don't think that uh, people align themselves with parties. It's more branding. That's the generation we're in now, that you've got branding, whether you be on social media or be a politician. Donald Trump wasn't about being a Republican. He's not a Republican. He's not a conservative. He branded his personality. Gavin Newsom is a brand. People like him, are attracted to him because of the things he says. The Democrats could understand that and brand some people or allow people to brand themselves so that they can take the spotlight. People always say that elections aren't popularity contests. The fuck they aren't. That's exactly what they are. And as long as we know that, we should be behaving as such in order to win these fucking elections. The good news is when Donald Trump is gone, there is really nobody with the personality, charisma, or whatever you want to call it, of Donald Trump. Everybody else is pretty low level, not very interesting. J.D. Vance is a good example. You think that J.D. Vance is going to pull the same kind of power that Donald Trump did? No way. Roseanne says, personally, I'm pro-life, but I believe that having an abortion is nobody's business except the woman and her doctor. I agree with you completely. Doctors have to make the choices. Women have to make the choices. And if you don't like it, too fucking bad. People are registering as independents instead of Dems or GOP. Yeah, I think that's a protest of sorts against what they're seeing in politics. Because even before Donald Trump, before he created the dumpster fire he created, people were upset about Democrats and Republicans. And it's clear why. They're there to represent us, correct? But they don't seem to represent us. They don't seem to vote the way we want them to vote. It's about satisfying the oligarchs that keep pushing money in their pockets. People are getting tired of this bullshit. They're getting tired of working every day, paying a lot of taxes, and getting nothing in return. Look, you should look at taxes as kind of an investment. And then there should be a return on that investment, whether it be streets or highways, whether it be help for the lesser fortunate, whether it be better schools or whatever. That's the least you can expect. Now, what Donald Trump wants to do is he wants to take all that money from you and me and then give it to rich people, and then we get nothing. Doesn't take a genius to figure out that's pretty fucked up, and we don't need to do that. J.D. Vance is putting himself into the spotlight casually. Well, if he is, he's being directed by the Peter Thiels or the Elon Musk or whatever. J.D. Vance isn't a very bright man, and he's not good when he stands in front of a crowd. Every time he opens his mouth, he embarrasses himself. So I'm ready for him to take over for Donald Trump. People are worried about J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is weak. MAGA doesn't even like him. If he's going to be the guy in charge, he's going to be even weaker than Donald Trump. Spacer, as an aspiring public health official, I have always believed that the Hippocratic Oath is to see to the best health outcomes for everyone, but also with people's choices in their healthcare decisions. Yeah, this has gotten so bad and people are now starting to lose their health care. Somebody made this point to me one time. It was Robert Reich. He was on television. And he says, think back to the era of the Depression. We had the Republicans and the conservatives, and they pretty much destroyed this country economically. We'd gone way right. And he says, what happened right after that when we finally came out of that? Then as kind of a counterbalance or as kind of a leveling off, this country went way left. And what do I mean by that? I mean FDR, the New Deal, Social Security, and all those social nets. Those all came about because of the rough times people were put through by the Republicans. So I'm hoping against hope that once we get out of this, we might swing that way again. I think at the very least, I would love to see universal health in this country, regardless of who's making money or not making money. I don't give a fuck. I mean, we've got the biggest insurance agencies in this country being investigated for massive fraud. So who cares if we take their business away from them? We need to keep the people in this country healthy. We need to be in a situation where people don't have to choose whether to eat or get healthy, live or die because they don't have the money. That should not be happening in this country or any country close to it. And guess what? It's not happening anywhere else but here. I will never forgive Trump and Vance for how they treated Zelensky. It was disgusting. Yeah, it was pretty disgusting. I will never forgive Trump and Vance. And frankly, I will never forgive anybody that continues to support Donald Trump or Vance. You knew what you were doing. You didn't have a problem with them going after other people. You only cried when they went after you. Um, and some people say, we got to forgive them. We got to bring them in. I'm sorry, I can't do that because I can't trust them. How do I know the next fucking crazy train that goes through that they don't jump on board? I need to keep them at a distance, let them wallow in their own shit. I don't need to be around them. Gabrielle says the American people were complacent. ET woke a sleeping giant. We, the people, are pissed and hold the power. It's going to take some time, but we will not tolerate this Project 2025 bullshit. Well, you're absolutely right about that, Gabrielle. One of the main reasons we're in this problem right now is because of decades and decades and decades of apathy. It's been fucking horrible. People just sit back and go, well, let them handle it. It'll be fine. It's the government. Of course, they're doing the right thing. And slowly but surely, it got worse and worse and worse until it became intolerable, until somebody like Donald Trump had the opportunity to be elected president. Now everybody's getting their ass kicked and they're going, wait, what the fuck? You're exactly right. They uh, woke angry giant who's angry now. And you're absolutely right. The people have the power and they will obviously prevail. It's the bullshit we have to go through until we get to that point. See, if only everyone would listen to you as a community, we might be able to heal our trauma. Well, I don't know if I'm the complete answer, but there are plenty of people out there talking, people of like minds, people of critical thinking minds that know better than this. You know, when I say the things I say about what I believe, people go, "Oh, that's amazing." It's not fucking amazing. It's just common sense. It's logic. It's fucking logic. You know, like somebody says, "Why don't you? Oh, why aren't you racist? Why do you dislike racist?" Because it's stupid. It makes no fucking sense. But other people are so fearful of everything that they will do what they do. Spacer, this is progress being made, I think, with people like Plattner, Mondani, Sanders doing his thing, AOC, Crockett. Are trying to put universal health care into the policy conversation. I mean, it's embarrassing how places like Japan, Denmark can provide everything to raise a kid from baby food to education and healthcare, and we have none of these things for us, for our young people. Yeah, and the crazy fucking thing about it is we've got all these Republicans upset about birth rates going down. You would think you'd want to cultivate these kids and make sure they're healthy and happy and safe, but it's all about money for them. Gabrielle, the Heritage Foundation has been operating under darkness for decades. They're probably all over the Epstein files. Time for their comeuppance. I agree. Yeah, I think that whole Epstein files is going to go way deeper than what we think. And there's going to be a lot of people in there that are just fucking appalling. And it's going to destroy some lives, but they're lives that deserve to be destroyed. Jillian says, I can't trust any MAGA. I've lost 2 decades worth of friendships with people over Trump and their lack of morals, and I won't look back. Yeah, Jillian, I agree with you. I've got a number of friends and maybe even a couple of relatives that still support MAGA. And one of them asked me, why are you so upset with me? I said, I just have no respect for you. I don't hate you. You go do you. I'll do me. But I have no respect for you, and I don't want to be around you because you're negative and you're looking to damage this country. And if I stick around you long enough, you're going to make me mad because I see you trying to wreck a country where my grandchildren are going to have to live in. And if I put that together and think that you're hurting my grandchildren, then I may fucking hurt you. So just go away. You're a definite power human in this fight. Well, I'm loud. Put it that way. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that want to speak out, but they can't for whatever reason. They don't have a platform. They don't feel comfortable doing it. Their bosses might fire them or family might get mad at them. I don't have a boss. I took the time. I built kind of a platform. My family all agrees with me, and if they don't, they know better than to fucking argue with me about it, because it won't go well. The few that have argued with me, I don't talk to anymore. And it's more about them being nervous about engaging with me again because I made sure they were embarrassed through the process. I think Jasmine Crockett will be the Democratic nominee advance. I don't think you'll see Jasmine Crockett as the nominee in 2028. You got to remember, she is brand new in the House of Representatives. She is smart, she is strong, but she's got to build a little time in there. I said the same thing about AOC when she first came in. She's starting to build up, the track record and the popularity. She may be getting close. I would say she'd be more likely to be a candidate for president before Jasmine Crockett, uh, just by virtue of how much time she's been in there. But here's the problem. In 2024, we realized something that I think is very disturbing. Kamala Harris was far and away the best candidate. She was plenty of experience, probably the most experienced candidate for the presidency in history, and she still lost to Donald Trump. And the way I read that is the amount of racism and sexism in this country is far worse than I thought. I personally think that Kamala lost more because she was a woman than she was a woman of color. But nonetheless, I wonder about this country and if they would vote for a woman, especially a woman of color. Uh, it's disappointing to me. I could see AOC, I could see Kamala, even Jasmine Crockett a few years down the road when she's got some experience being president. I would have no problem with that. I would look forward to it. But there's enough fucked up people in this country where that may not be a possibility. Uh, let's see here. I get so angry with people who say your vote doesn't count. Every vote counts, and we lost because of all the people who didn't bother to vote. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We lost for a number of reasons, but probably the single biggest reason is a lot of Democrats didn't vote. And people would say, well, how do you know that? Well, um, in uh, in 2020, the largest number of votes ever were cast, and Joe Biden got 81 or 82 million votes. No presidential candidate has gotten more votes than Joe Biden. Well, in 2024, the number of votes was far less. Why is that? And again, I have to wonder if it isn't sexism or racism. It's sad to think that, but what other reason could there possibly be? Because Donald Trump was a great fucking candidate? Please. Spacer says Whitney Houston said kids are the future, teach them well, and they will lead the way. One of my favorite songs. Yeah, absolutely. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter, and the two things I love about her, the smart as a whip. I mean, really smart. And I'm not saying that just because I'm her grandfather, but she's really smart, and she takes no shit, and she's in your face. So she'll do it to me. We're best buddies, but she'll give me some shit from now and again. And we need more people out there. We need people willing to fight. We need people to speak up and say some shit. SM says, so what are your thoughts about who would be the nominee in the future? Um, I don't know who it would be specifically because we're 3 years away from the election. I've always said candidates aren't picked, they kind of emerge. And if you were to look at an emerging candidate now, it would be Gavin Newsom. But we're 3 years away from the election, or at least 2 years away from getting a candidate, probably. And it's too early because things can happen, things can change, people can come out of the woodwork. I mean, you think about Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, people like that. They came out of fucking nowhere and they ended up being president of the United States. So it's hard to say. The one thing I feel unfortunately confident about, I think whoever they bring in, I think it's going to be a white male. honestly. I honestly believe that. And, J.B. Pritzker, would be a likely prospect. He would be a great prospect. John Ossoff, the senator in Georgia, another great candidate. Ruben Gallego wouldn't be a bad choice either. Ben Schatz, I hear, is pretty good, both in the Senate and young. And, somebody like Ben Schatz, we haven't heard from that much, but he may be one of those guys that emerge. Something happens where he takes the lead and does some interesting things. That's what I'm saying. Things will happen between now and 2028. We're probably going to be done with Donald Trump sometime in the not so distant future. And when that happens, it'll be a whole new dynamic in Washington. The different people will be doing different things, and they will, like I say, emerge. Um, my question is, why would you think if she can be nominated as vice president, not a president? Um, well, there's a big difference between a president and a vice president. Um, I don't think you can compare the two. I think it's apples and oranges. I think there's a lot of women out there that just don't like the idea of a woman being president. They can deal with a vice president, but not a president. And I think there's the racist people that would vote against anybody of color, you know. But I think the female aspect of Kamala Harris is one of the things that hurt her. And I think the people that didn't vote for her, and I'm getting this. This isn't coming out of my head and just making this shit up. This is from talking to other women, my wife included. They think those are the people that wouldn't vote for a woman for the office. Try to explain that to me? I fucking can't. But that's what they say. There's a general concern within Canadians of American invading Canada. This so-called Alberta independence stinks of American oil companies meddling. Yeah, I've heard about that. I don't think that's going much anywhere. They can talk all they want, but no matter where you go, you're going to get dumbass Trumplifucks. I mean, we've had these people around for 100 years. They've been doing these sorts of things. It wasn't until recently, because of our apathy, that they've been able to get a foothold and actually have some power. God, I hate these. Sorry, Gabrielle. Boomer, what you've created has made a difference in the fight for our democracy. Thanks for all your thanks, and you're right. Kamala lost because she's a woman. We elected a black man, one of the greatest presidents, but this country is far from electing a woman. Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I hate to say that. I mean, because here I am, an old white guy, and I would be happy. I was happy to vote for a woman of color. I had no misgivings about it at all. I knew she was smart, and I knew she would be a great president. But for some people, the gender or the race is a big deal. And it's largely due to the fact that they're fucking dumbasses. Shapiro, Pennsylvania may be a candidate. Yeah, he could. He could be. My only problem with Shapiro is similar to my problem with Gavin Newsom, is they all seem pretty slick and pretty establishment, and people are clearly suggesting that they aren't into establishment politics anymore. Being a governor is a better experience than being a senator. Obama is an exception to the rule. Yeah, if you look at people who have been elected president, more often than not, it's a governor. And the reason a governor is a better choice is because they are basically the CEO of their respective states. And when they become president, they become CEO of the country. So the job is similar. It's bigger when you're president, but it's similar. And that's why you do see governors winning the presidency quite often. I appreciate the answer. So that's why Clinton was Secretary of State to Biden. That's too bad. Yeah, that's probably largely due to why she was Secretary of State. I don't know if there was any infighting between Biden and Hillary Clinton back in the first time around, but um, people had a great dislike for Hillary Clinton, and I don't know really why. I think it had to do with her being a strong woman. Many men and some women have a problem with that. I don't know. If I'm going to vote for you for president, I want you to be strong and in people's face. Do you think there is any substance to the talk of him wanting to send troops to attack the cartels in Mexico? I I think he said that. I think he believes that he wants to do it. But you have to understand, Donald Trump doesn't think about anything he says. He pulls shit out of his ass, throws it against the wall, and hopes something sticks. Will they actually do it? I got to tell you, if they go in there, they're going to be in a world of trouble, not just on the war effort, but people around the world, other countries are not going to stand for that shit. Do you think, okay, black men got the right to vote before women? Yeah. Yeah, they did. I mean, I was born in 1960, and during the 60s, guess what? Women couldn't have credit cards. Women couldn't buy a car or a house without a cosigner being a man. That's how short a time ago it was where women were just given zero rights. Do you think with the dissatisfaction of both parties, do you think it might be emboldened long shot bids, maybe no labels reemerging? The Greens will try to throw the number, or RFK or another Trump official will foolishly try again, maybe even try to avoid accountability like they were seeing with some others trying to run for other positions. Yeah, I don't think the Green Party is an issue. I don't think they're really going to ever have any impact. What I was saying before is you'll have Democrats and Republicans, but you're going to have people, brands or personalities that emerge. That's what it's going to take to get elected president, much like we're seeing with Gavin Newsom, much like we saw with Donald Trump. You're going to have to speak the words they want to hear, and you're going to have to do it in the way they want to hear it. And if you're a Democrat, you want somebody talking strong, pushing back. Gavin Newsom is the only one doing it right now, so he's a likely candidate for the presidency in 2028. But as I said, that's a long way away, so things can change. Let's see here. Any chances of collabs with other creators? I'd love to collab with other creators. I've done it a couple times here. I have a number of people that are on the podcast. Eric, Analytical Iowan. Um, who else have I done it with? Will may come on here with me at some point. Um, I'd be, I'm always willing to collaborate with anybody. I'll be honest with you. Most of the big creators, on the rare occasion that I've reached out to them, they don't even bother to respond. I don't know what the deal is. Uh, but the people I know, yeah, I'll definitely have them on. Uh, I'm looking forward to that. I was talking to Will about it the other day. TJ's been on here before. Eric, I'll be happy to do it. And if there's anybody you want me to collab with, by all means, just tell me, and I'll see what I can do. Rose, I remember I was born in '59. Yeah, you are a chronological peer of mine. You know exactly what happened in the '60s. Gavin has that personality, strong and good looking. Yeah, when you talk about criteria for a president, good looking and a strong personality isn't necessarily the first thing you would think of, but in this day and age, that's what it's going to take. That's absolutely what it's going to take. Tell you what, I'm going to wrap things up for this Substack Live. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen, to participate. It makes everything so much easier when you're participating. If you didn't hear the whole live, it'll be on the Rational Boomer podcast on Spotify or YouTube. You can get the whole thing after that. Again, I appreciate you coming out here and spending the time with me. Gabrielle Turi says, this will be the last one here. Mexico elected a woman to a presidency. The U.S. has a weird patriarchy things, but my kids' generation, cusp for millennial, Gen Z, will break that. They already are. I have faith that the USU will be a great place for your magnificent granddaughter to soar. Yeah, yeah, I'm hoping that's the case. That's really the only goal here is I'm looking to the future, a future when I'm probably not here. I don't want to leave this place worse off than I found it. And frankly, I came in the 60s, so it wasn't great back then. But we have the ability to be better than when we started. And hopefully, with those of us out here talking and continuing to push, we can see some gains and we can see some improvement. So, again, thank you for spending the time with me. I appreciate you taking the time and actually sitting down and listening and participating. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.